All right, so let's start chapter 6. All right, so this one is going to be more about the talking about the skeletal system. Okay. So skeletal system, obviously it's your bones in your skeleton, but also includes cartilage, ligaments, other connective tissue that helps your bones. Okay, helps interconnect them or stabilize them. All right, so functions of the skeletal system. Again, like I'll say it before and I'll say it again. You see things underlined, those are probably things you need to know, right? Could be a short answer question, could be a quiz question or multiple choice question. You know, these are good. Which of the following is or is not a function of? Good short answer questions. Name two of the following functions, or name two functions of the skeletal system. So it can provide structural support for your body. It's a framework. Stores lipids and minerals. Right, your bones store calcium. Makes blood cells, both the red and the white blood cells, as well as your platelets. Protects your organs and tissues, surrounds them. Like your rib cage protects your lungs and your heart. And provides some leverage. So you can protect the organs and tissues, and you can also provide leverage so that your bones can move. Right? Your bones act as levers. So basically your muscles can generate force and move in a certain direction. Remember, ology is study of, so osteology is study of the bones. How many bones do you have? 206. So that probably will show up either in lecture and lab, but you need to know that number. Okay, how many bones do we have? We have 206. So what are the different kinds of bones? We break them up into different categories. So you have the long bones, as the name implies, they're long and slender. So things like your radius, your phalanges, and your fingers and toes, and your femur, those are long bones. You also have short bones, have more of a box-like appearance. So like the bones in your wrist and your ankle, your carpal and tarsal bones, those are short bones. You also have flat bones. They're thin, have parallel surfaces. So things like your scapula is considered a flat bone. Your sternum is considered a flat bone. Parietal bone. Many of the bones of the skull are considered flat bones. Your ribs are actually considered flat bones. You might think of them as different from these other bones that are in this category, but we actually consider them flat because they have a thin parallel surface. You also have irregular bones. You have complex shapes, different kinds of surfaces, like your vertebrae. You also have sesamoid bones. They're shaped like a sesame seed, small and flat. Examples are your patellae, right, and your knees. We also have wormian bones or sutural bones. These are small and flat, and they have irregular shapes, but they form between the flat bones of the skull. Okay, so that's where you'll see them. Sort of, kind of in between sutures. Okay, bone can also be described in terms of its hardness. So you can have compact bone or dense bone, very solid on the surface of the bone. Helps with protection. We also have spongy bone, also known as cancellous bone. It's on the inside of the bone. Open, looks like a network. All right. So long bone has some different parts to it. It's got a long shaft, and that's called the diaphysis. Okay, so a long piece in the middle of the bone is the diaphysis. At either end of the bone, you have epiphyses. So one of them is called an epiphysis, but if you count both on either end, they are epiphyses. Now, you'll also see what we call a metaphysis. And so that's a place where your epiphysis and your diaphysis meet up. Okay? On the inside of the bone, where you have the spongy bone, you get what's called a marrow cavity or medullary cavity. Okay? It's where your bone marrow is made. And just surrounding the spongy bone is a layer of compact bone called a cortex. All right. So you also have cartilage covering the epiphyses. You typically see these in synovial joints. Okay, so you're not wanting those bones to hit against each other. So you have articular cartilage there on those surfaces. So those of you play a lot of basketball or volleyball, probably there's a lot of jumping involved. So particularly in the knee joint, you have that synovial joint. You want to make sure that you keep those knee joints in good shape. Keep that articular cartilage strong. Keep the synovial joints going well. Keep the ligaments in that joint strong. All right, so let's take a pause and talk about the types of bones and the parts of a long bone. So you can talk with your partner about that. And you can do that at home as well. All right, so spaces within your spongy bone and your marrow cavity contain the bone marrow, which is made up of loose connective tissue. It can be yellow or red. So yellow bone marrow, as the name suggests, has fat in it, has adipocytes. It's for storing lipids, which are used for energy. So you'll see that in the medullary cavities of long bones. But in the medullary cavities of ribs, vertebrae, sternum, your pelvic bones, as well as the ends of your femur and the humerus, you'll have red bone marrow. You'll see mature and immature red and white blood cells there, as well as some stem cells. That's where the blood cells are made. Now for flat bones, their structure is a little different. You have basically, flat bones are kind of like I would say like maybe a pita bread sandwich or a grilled cheese sandwich. So you have these layers of compact bone on the outside, those are pieces of bread, and then you got your whatever you're eating on the inside, whether it's your cheese or whatever, and that's your layer of spongy bone. So that's, we call it kind of a diploid. But that's basically 2 layers of compact bone with a layer of spongy bone in the middle. A little on tissues and histology for bones. So bones, you might think of them as just being static, but they are changing all the time. All right. They are involved in supporting the connective tissue in your body. They have a lot of specialized cells in them. They are composed of protein fibers and ground substance. It forms a solid matrix. Okay, characteristics of bone. The matrix is very dense, very tightly packed, has calcium in it. You have osteocytes. Remember, site means cell, osteo means bone. And they are within what we call lacunae. Lacunae is a fancy word for pockets. All right. You also have canaliculi. These are little passageways in the matrix. And they go between the lacunae and blood vessels nearby. You also have periosteum. That's covering your outer surface. Peri is for outer. So it covers the outer surface of your bones. So the bone matrix is made up of material we call hydroxyapatite. Okay. And that results from some interaction between calcium hydroxide and calcium phosphate. And the calcium phosphate in your bone is what accounts for the majority of your bone's weight. It's very hard and inflexible, it's brittle, but it can withstand being compressed, which is good because it has to carry your body weight, right? But it can shatter if it's exposed to bending, twisting, or some sudden impact. All right, so those are like the football injuries where you see the person's leg gets broken or twisted out of place, or I'm blanking down the guy's name right now. I can see his face, but basketball player for New Orleans that busted his ankle in college. Just the impact of him hitting the ground was enough to tear his shoe apart. So you also have collagen fibers. So the other 33% of your weight of your bones is made up from the collagen. It's strong and flexible and does allow for some twisting and bending. And when it's compressed, it bends. So you want some collagen in your bone, but you need some ability to move a little bit, but we wouldn't want your bone to be all made of that, because then your bones would just flop around. So in your bone, your calcium phosphate is going to connect with the collagen fibers. So you get some strength, you also get some flexibility. You get some ability to resist shattering. Okay, and very similar in terms of its strength to concrete that's been reinforced with steel. Okay, so bones are very strong. Let's talk about bone cell types. Actually, we'll stop here. It's 10:30, so we'll talk about that next time. So if you'll do your exit tickets, and then you can talk to your partner about what we learned so far.